Hi there, everyone. My name is Christian Eschbach, and today I'm going to be looking at Iron Maiden, Iron Maiden. This is one of my all time favorite albums. Not just from Iron Maiden, but one of my all time favorite albums. And it is one of my all time favorite albums for a variety of reasons. The funniest part, though, is it has none of my favorite Iron Maiden members on this album. Before I get into all my personal stories and stuff like that, I want to talk about the band lineup on this album, okay? The band lineup was Steve Harris on bass, the only member of Iron Maiden that's 100% from day one. Dave Murray on guitar, who has also been there close to day one, but not quite day one. Then, outside of that, you start getting into names most people may not recognize. First, you have Clive Burr, who was the drummer right up until the Number of the Beast album, and then it switched over to the drummer everybody knows now as Nico. You also had Paul Di'Anno on vocals, who was the vocalist prior to the legendary Bruce Dickinson, who I absolutely love. But on guitar, you had a guitarist that most people have never heard of related to Iron Maiden, and that's Dennis Stratton, who was later replaced by Adrian Smith. And I mention all of this because it's going to come up later and it's really important, especially when I start talking about certain elements that have been there from the beginning and certain elements that got better as things went on, and stuff like that. Uh, but I have a personal story I want to get into with this album, okay? And the personal story is when I was in high school, my last year of high school, I was really big into audio video. I was part of the video club, and that gave me a lot of leeway for my video production class that I took. And in my video production class, I was working with a bunch of guys that, punk was the big thing at the time, okay? And new punk and blah, 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 blah. So all the guys I was working with in my particular group, they were all really into punk. I was pretty much the only real classic rock, heavy metal kind of guy in the class. So I spent most of my time listening to punk or whatever they wanted to do. I was cool with that. But we had this one project we were working on, which ended up getting nixed by the teacher because the content was just too goofy for him. It was a great slapstick guys running because they got to go to the bathroom gag. But I had introduced Riverside High School to Iron Maiden as a punk band through this album because I was listening to this album really, really heavy at that time. And I convinced them to use one of the tracks off of here to go on there. And I convinced them by playing the track for them without telling them it was Iron Maiden. I'm like, hey guys, what do you think about this? Would this work? And I put this track on. Oh yeah, it's really good, man. I love that. Sounds great. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, what is it? It's Iron Maiden. What? Okay. So that went from my buddy Ian, who was the bassist in the punk band Wonka Vision. If you could ever find one of their cassettes, good luck. I'm sure they're out there somewhere. But anyways, so he was in a punk band called Wonka Vision with the prime minister of our school, who I've mentioned before in my review of Danzig 3, How the Gods Kill, Tim McCready. And Tim, as the prime minister of our school and also, one of the big punks, he goes up to my best friend, who I was borrowing this album from at the time. And he goes, hey man, is it true that they did punk, blah blah blah? And I said, oh yeah, sure. And then he comes and asks me, and I'm like, oh yeah, sure, blah blah blah. And we were talking about it, and all this back and forth, blah, blah, blah. And really, it was this whole revolution kind of thing. Now, Steve Harris would hate every last comment I just made there because Steve Harris hates any and all association of Iron Maiden with the punk movement. And it's because of this album that they get associated so much. They really do. Because the DIY on this album, the sound, the rawness, the aggressiveness, the in your face, the vocal style, everything like that on this album definitely has punk like elements to it. And when I say punk, I'm not talking Rancid, I'm not talking Black Flag, I'm talking more Sex Pistols. Um, I'm maybe a little bit of the clash in the tone and the production style, not in the music style, okay? But there that punk element had a major influence in the new wave of British heavy metal at the same time. That was all going on. The Leather and Bikes is just a bunch of punk thing. It's kind of evolved a little over time. Now we see it as two separate things, and they're completely different elements. But back in the UK in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a lot of similarities and a lot of pass back and forth, whether people want to admit it or not. Just like, around that time, you were seeing a lot of disco in American rock. You know what I'm saying, folks? You just can't deny it. Anyways, the point is, this album transcends boundaries. It truly does. This is a accomplished metal album by all standards, but it is a gateway drug into punk, classic punk, but it's a gateway drug into metal. It's very much Motorhead like that way. I mean, Motorhead's Overkill album and this are on par with each other for that whole punk metal hybrid beauty. Sorry, Steve Harris, if you ever see this, I am really sorry. I know you hate that. I apologize. Anyways, reason why this is my favorite, it's not necessarily even my favorite Maiden album. It's just one of my all-time favorite albums because from beginning to end, it's a great album. I love every part of it. There's one song on the entire album I'm not a big fan of, and it's only because it's basically, well, maybe two songs on the album I'm not a big fan of. And it's only because they kind of like repeat a little bit. But let me get into this. The album opens up with Prowler. First off, that is just, the song is wicked. That wah work in the beginning, wah, 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 wah. Wah, 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 doo, doo, wah, wah. Oh my god, like, awesome. Just such a killer way to grab you and hook you into the album right at the beginning. And, wah. I'm a sucker for good wah. Good solid wah. And it's fantastic. It really is. I love every second of it. Really fast, really powerful, really gripping song. Really, it is how you want to start off an album. What I find interesting is they go from this great, fast, high pace, boom, into a complete slowdown with Remember Tomorrow. Now, when I say complete slowdown, I'm not talking like, and you hear Remember Tomorrow right away, you're thinking, oh, 80s metal power ballad. No, 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 no. You're safe. You're safe. First off, Maiden, not really a ballad kind of band. I think there might be one or two out there, but not ballads as in the power ballads people would panic about with 80s hair metal. Because, yeah, this can be attached to that too. But Remember Tomorrow is just a slower melodic song. If you're familiar with Metallica's Fade to Black, it's not a ballad, it's just a slower tune. Something a little more from the heart, a little more textured. And this song, Remember Tomorrow, is a really, really beautiful textured song. And this is that, Prowler, you could argue, is part of that punk, aggressive, kind of in your face vibe. Remember Tomorrow is definitely that metal-y side. And it's really weird that I would use the slow song as a metal-y side. But if you listen to the way that it's structured and the way it's all laid out and planned out and how meticulous all the little intricacies are on it, it's a metal tune. It really is. From there, we go into one of my all-time favorite songs. I mean, like, if I've got to pick a top 10 list of songs that I cannot live without, Running Free. The original version. I love Bruce Dickinson. I do. But the original album cut with Clive Burr on drums and Paul Di'Anno on vocals is where the fuck it is at. That drum pattern, I love that drum pattern. Oh my god. I've used it. I have, within my own band, working on songs and stuff like that, I've stuck it in there. I've absolutely stuck it in there, man. Because you learn that pattern, you can't help but stick it in there. Because it's got such a great giddy up to it, man. And it does. It just gets you up and moving and going, and you loving life. And Clive Burr, it really is a shame. Clive Burr unfortunately had to leave the band due to medical illnesses. I don't remember 100% what it was, but unfortunately, it ended up, he's even passed on at this point, if I remember correctly. But fantastic drummer. One of metal's unsung heroes on drums, really was. And Nico is fantastic as well, but the drum patterns on this album are something else. The drum patterns in general that Clive used to do were always something a little bit different. If you listen to what Nico does, Nico's a little more straightforward. I love Nico, and I've seen Maiden twice, and it's obviously been with Nico both times. And you can't say anything against Nico. Nico has done some amazing drum work, but there was just something experimental about the drums in this time period that you just didn't see later on. Not the same way. After running, and with Running Free, the other thing too I love about Running Free, and I haven't mentioned yet, is another reason I love this album so much is it's the only Iron Maiden album I can sing along with from beginning to end. Because Paul Di'Anno is hittable, Bruce Dickinson is a god of voice and song, and I can do Fear of the Dark a little bit. Fear of the Dark's not too bad to try and do, but man, forget that. All that other stuff, man. I've tried The Trooper. I've tried everything else, man. Forget it. No way. Not happening. Paul Di'Anno, I've karaoke tracks off of here. It's so much easier to do. So much easier to do. And I mention this because with Running Free, trying to play drums and sing it at the same time, that's a challenge. But the lyrics alone, man, it speaks to that teenage angst. And it speaks to that teenage angst or young adult even, that early youth. Because, the opening lines, just 16, a pickup truck, out of money, out of luck. Got no place to call my own. Hit the gas and here I go. I'm running free. It's going to capture every bit of youth. But at the same time, you could change it to, myself. I'm just 42, a pickup truck, out of money, out of luck. I got no place to call my own. Hit the gas and it works on every level, no matter what. And can't love this song enough. There's a reason it's one of my all-time favorites. And that was not me trying to hit those notes, just so we're clear, not trying to sing that. No backing, no singing. From there, we go into Phantom of the Opera. That and you get the dueling guitar thing going on all of a sudden, and it's just off to the races. I mean, literally, it's off to the races. That is the best way to describe the sound and music on it, because you just fire like a shot going, man. And it's this great, beautiful chase of a song all over the place. Also, incredibly long song by this album standards, as it clocks in at 7 minutes and change. Remember Tomorrow clocks in around 5.5-ish, and then there's one other song that clocks in around 5.5-ish. Everything else is more the radio friendly 3.5 under 4 range. But Phantom of the Opera is a spectacular album. Song, sorry. And nothing to do with the Andrew Lloyd Webber, no inspiration themes or anything like that. This is based off of the original true Phantom of the Opera story. Maybe the original movie, black and white movie, instead of the book, but I would imagine with this band, it's from the book. From there, we go into Transylvania, which is a instrumental piece. Great, great piece. Just kind of moves you along all the way through. Wonderful. The thing with Transylvania I love is the way that it flows into the next song, Strange World. It makes the two on the CD sound like this great, long, epic piece, like they do with Phantom of the Opera almost, because Phantom of the Opera's got all these changes and all these mixes in there, and no, I shouldn't say mixes, but all these changes, ups in there, and all these different feels and textures and stuff like that as it's going through this great kind of chase kind of vibe. And then you get into Transylvania, and you get this, it's instrumentation going into another song again, but it's like this beautiful lead up, kind of like what Black Sabbath used to do, like with Tony Iommi, where he would do Embryo, which would lead in Children of the Grave, or Orchid, which led into the Lord of this World, I think it was. Maybe I'd have to double check on that one. But like it just has this beautiful lead into it, and you go into Strange World. And Strange World is, believe it or not, when I was talking at the beginning about some songs that I'm not huge on in this album because I feel they're a little repetitive, sort of. Strange World actually has this kind of repetitive-esque vibe to Remember Tomorrow. I find the two sound a little too similar for me, and to the point where it takes a little bit away from Strange World. But Strange World is a fantastic song, and I really, really dig it. There really is not a bad song on this album. It just depends on how anal and critical you want to get. I just find that in the way that this album was mixed, or the way this album was done, they sound a little too similar for me. Which leads me to my next one, where I have the same complaint about the song sounding too similar-ish. But it's going to be weird because it's going to be backwards. And that gets us to Sanctuary. I like Sanctuary. Sanctuary is a good tune. Sanctuary is a real fun tune. I would say, once again, kind of goes that youthful rebellion, but the consequences of youthful rebellion, looking for that sanctuary from the law because you were out running free. Yeah, it's kind of that follow-up going on there. Good, fun tune, really playful. But on this album, it kind of sounds a lot like the very last track on the album, but the last track sounds like it should be the first. I'll get to it. We'll get to it, okay. But Sanctuary, good tune, but it has that same issue that Strange World has, where it feels like it's kind of copy-ish off of another song, or use the same formula as another song. Okay, track 8, Charlotte the Harlot. I love Charlotte the Harlot. There's a lot of people that talk shit about this song, talk a lot of shit about this song. I have always liked Charlotte the Harlot because there's a romanticism to it, much like The Police with Roxanne. Now, with Roxanne's Don't Put Out the Red Light, this is more someone who's fallen in love with the local night life. Okay. I want to keep it as tongue-in-cheek as possible. I know I like to drop swear bombs and be as real as possible. Sometimes it might be fun to be tongue-in-cheek, especially when, the title Charlotte the Harlot kind of says it all, right? But Charlotte the Harlot, as weird as it's going to sound, I take in the same way as I take Krista Berg's Just Another Poor Boy when he's talking about Mary, the Lady of the Night, taking in someone. I view Charlotte kind of the same way, giving that warmth and that comfort to that cold, lonely young boy who is just looking for that warmth of a woman's touch, just not even necessarily sex entirely, just that warm bed per se, you know what I'm saying? But then again, Charlotte the Harlot is also spawned into a multitude of sequels, because you also get 22 Acacia Avenue off of Number of the Beast, which is part 2 of this. And then part 3, From Here to Eternity, from the Fear of the Dark album. Now, I don't know if part 3 is 100%, but I know a lot of people say it is. Anyways, great song. I really dig it. Really love it. Then the album finishes off with Iron Maiden. Same song that they tend to finish off every show with for very good reason. That dueling leads. Oh my god. The dueling leads from the get-go. This is the beauty of Iron Maiden. Dueling leads was always there. Yes, they replaced and went to Adrian Smith, which meant the dueling leads only got better. Sorry to all the people involved in here, but Bruce Dickinson and Adrian Smith are the bomb, man. Are the shit, are everything that is primo about metal. Oh, whew, I love me some Bruce Dickinson, Adrian Smith combo together. I mean, the two of them write some of my all-time favorite Maiden songs. But anyways, I am getting ahead of myself as we're not at those two musicians yet. Dueling leads were on Iron Maiden, the song, right from the get-go. On the whole album, really. And the song itself, that there is a reason why when Bill and Ted are being told they're being put in the Iron Maiden, they say excellent. Oh, fantastic song. Of all the songs, and Sanctuary honestly feels like it feels like Iron Maiden was clearly written first, and then Sanctuary was kind of a playoff of Iron Maiden. That's how it feels when I listen to the whole album as a whole. And this is honestly, seriously, one of my favorite albums of all time. I'm not saying it's one of the best albums of all time. I'm saying it's one of my favorite albums of all time. I don't think it's even necessarily one of Maiden's best albums. It's one of my favorite albums from Maiden, if not my favorite album from Maiden, but not their best album. Let me be very clear. The album that would challenge this as my favorite album from Maiden, I would call their best album, and I'm not going to say what it is. Spoilers. You'll have to watch, and eventually I'll get to it. But yeah, that's my views on the Iron Maiden album. If you listen to metal, you have to own this album. If you listen to punk, you should pick up this album. You really should. You should listen to this album. Because you will definitely see a lot of similarities, and it's better than punk. You give me a choice between this or Nevermind the Bollocks. I'm going with this every time. Better album. And that's without even being a music snob. It's just a better album. Music fans in general really should. This is a historic album, and the beauty of this album from day one and how much it really continues on in the band over the decades. This was a 1980 release. I didn't see Iron Maiden live for the first time until like 30 years later after this, somewhere almost. I saw them when they were touring, I think the 25th anniversary for the Seventh Son tour. The Maiden England tour specifically. That was the first time I saw them. They were doing the 25th anniversary of the Maiden England tour. And then, I saw them again summer before lockdown with all this COVID bullshit. So I guess 2018 I saw them out on their Best of the Beast tour or something. I can't remember what they called it. Fantastic tour. And honestly, Maiden has only gotten better tour-wise when I've seen them. Like, what I saw from their first show to their second show just blew my mind amazingly. And you never would have gotten there without this. And the fact that at least 2 of these songs, 3 of these songs really, are still regular and mainstays that come and go within the set depending on what's going on the tour. Running Free I Running Free Sanctuary and Iron Maiden. I saw all three of the songs live when I saw them on the 25th anniversary of Maine, England. Um, Hell's to the yeah, right? And it's just yeah, buy the album. Anyways, I've rambled. Sorry. Uh, you know the routine. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I love to hear what you think about Iron Maiden, what you think I should do. I will do, except for Number of the Beast. Number of the Beast is not going to be done. I'm telling you right now, if you are one of my hardcore watchers, if you're one of those people, blah, 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 Number of the Beast is not going to be done until review number 666. Okay? I am going to be 100% cliche on that. That number has been earmarked for Number of the Beast. So I will not cover that album before I get to 666. That being said, any other album, let me know which one you want me to do next. I'll gladly cover it. I'll gladly do it. I am not going to get into many of the Maiden live albums. There's too many live albums at this point. It's gotten to the point where they do a tour, they do a live, or they do an album, they do a live album. They do an album, they do a live album. I'm not getting into it. It's not worth it. Certain ones, Live After Death, that one's on the table. I'm willing to do that. Some of the other ones, not really. Anyways, way too much rambling here. Leave a comment. Hit subscribe for notifications. Peace, love, take care. Until next time.